Imagine waking up one morning and your mom is just gone. No note, no signs of struggle. Her shoes still by the door, her coffee still warm. It's like she vanished into thin air. 7 years pass. The world moves on. And then, one day, she walks into a police station and says, "I was never missing." What would you do? Would you believe her? This is the story of a mother's disappearance, a chilling experiment in memory, and the love that refused to be erased. But before we begin, where in the world are you watching from? The fog came early that morning, blanketing Asheville in a quiet that felt almost rehearsed. It wasn't the soft, romantic fog of postcards and poetry. It was dense, low, and unwilling to move, the kind of fog that turned familiar streets into strangers. That's what people said later, at least, when they tried to explain how someone could vanish at 6:32 a.m. without anyone seeing. It started on Apple Blossom Drive. The street was a quiet one, tucked into the Blue Ridge foothills, framed by white picket fences, hydrangea bushes, and American flags left over from the 4th of July. Birds had only just begun their morning chatter, and the world was still in that fragile hush between night and day. Emily Carter's front porch light flickered once, like a heartbeat. The timer always clicked off at 6:30, but on that morning it hesitated. A flicker. Then nothing. Inside the house, the smell of cinnamon toast still hung in the air. 2 plates sat at the kitchen table, one with a bite missing. A Disney backpack rested by the door, its straps neatly folded. The keys were gone from the hook. So was Emily. Her husband, Daniel, said she had planned to drive early to the clinic she worked at, Mountain Ridge Pediatrics, where she was scheduled to open. Her car was found still parked in the garage. The keys, however, were found weeks later, buried in a flower bed behind the old oak tree. No signs of struggle, no broken locks, no forced entry, no footprints on the dew-soaked lawn. Just nothing. Emily was 38, a pediatric nurse, a mom of 2, known for making owl-shaped pancakes and remembering every student's birthday in her children's class. She didn't drink, didn't take sleeping pills, never missed work, never left without saying goodbye. So where was she? That morning, Daniel called her cell phone 5 times. No answer. By 7:10 a.m., he was pacing the porch, barefoot, clutching his own coffee like a lifeline. At 7:43 a.m., he called 911. That call is public record now. You can hear the panic building with every word. "My wife is gone. She was here. The kids are still here. Her phone is on the nightstand." There was silence on the other end for a beat. Then the dispatcher asked the question no one ever wants to answer. "Sir, do you believe your wife left on her own?" Daniel's voice cracked. "No. She wouldn't do that." Detective Maria Lopez arrived within 30 minutes. She had handled missing person cases before, but this one was different. She could feel it in her gut, and her gut rarely got it wrong. She walked through the Carter home slowly, cataloging everything: the untouched toast, the still warm coffee, the phone with no missed calls, no recent texts, and no fingerprints but Emily's. It looked frozen, like time had paused mid-sentence. Outside, she studied the gravel driveway. Nothing, not even a tire track. Emily's car was locked, parked neatly inside the garage, her purse still in the passenger seat. The engine was cold. She never even got in, Maria whispered to herself. Then came the first strange detail. In the mud beneath the back deck, someone had stepped once. Just one footprint. Too small for Daniel, too large for the kids, a woman's shoe. But Emily's shoes were all accounted for. All except one pair. White Skechers, size 8.5. Gone. By noon, the neighbors were gathered on the street, whispering. The Kinders said they heard a dog barking around 6:20. The Glens claimed they saw headlights behind their fence near the trees. One man swore he heard a woman's voice say, "I'm sorry," just before the silence. None of it lined up. The only thing they all agreed on? Emily loved her kids. She wouldn't just leave. But as the hours passed, that certainty began to unravel. People don't just vanish. Maybe she was overwhelmed. Maybe she ran off. Maybe it was an affair. Maybe she was never who they thought she was. Speculation grew like mold, fast, silent, and in every corner. Daniel refused to speak to reporters. He stayed inside with the children, 7-year-old Liam and 5-year-old Chloe, while search teams canvassed the nearby woods and creeks. The search dogs caught nothing, no scent, no trail. It was as if Emily had stepped outside and melted into the fog. And then the letters started arriving, typed. No return address, postmarked from towns across North Carolina. One sentence only, she's not missing. She never was. Detective Lopez stared at the first letter for 10 minutes straight. It had no fingerprints, no DNA, no errors. Whoever typed it knew what they were doing. Clean, clinical, emotionless. She kept it in her desk drawer, under lock and key. Then the second arrived, then the third. Each one mailed from a different town. Same message, same font, same envelope. She's not missing. She never was. 7 days after Emily's disappearance, the case was officially opened as a missing person under suspicious circumstances. On day 12, her hospital keycard was deactivated. On day 19, Daniel signed the police form allowing authorities to access her medical records. They showed nothing. No signs of illness, no medications, no psychological history. The children started therapy on day 27. By day 35, the case was cold. The porch light that once flickered at 6:30 a.m. never turned on again. The years passed. Life moved on. Daniel remarried. The kids grew. The flyers were taken down, the reward money quietly withdrawn, and the whispers in town faded to a murmur of memory. Until one day, 7 years later, the automatic doors of Asheville General opened, and Emily Carter walked inside, hair shorter, face older, voice calm. She walked straight to the receptionist, asked for Detective Maria Lopez, and said 6 words, "I was never really missing." Before she became a mystery, Emily Carter was the woman everyone trusted. She wasn't the loudest voice at school meetings, nor the one with the Pinterest-perfect birthday parties. But she was the mom who stayed late to help clean up after the bake sale, who brought extra mittens in winter in case a child forgot theirs, and who always remembered to ask how you were doing, and waited for the real answer. She had the kind of presence that made people feel safe, as if nothing could go terribly wrong as long as she was around. Emily was 38. She had been married to Daniel Carter for 12 years. They met in college. She was studying nursing, he was finishing a business degree, and settled in Asheville a few years after getting married. They moved into the house on Apple Blossom Drive just before Liam was born. The home was a modest 2-story colonial with green shutters, a creaky porch swing, and a kitchen that smelled of vanilla and lemon cleaner. Emily used to say she wanted their house to feel like a warm exhale. She worked part-time at Mountain Ridge Pediatrics 3 days a week and spent the rest of her time with Liam and Chloe. But there were moments, even then, when something in her eyes looked far away. Emily kept journals, not the classic leather-bound kind with ribbon bookmarks. Hers were dollar store spiral notebooks, soft covers, floral or geometric patterns. She kept them stacked in a shoebox under her bed. She wrote in them every night, in cursive so neat it could have passed for print. Her entries were a mix of practical thoughts, grocery lists, ideas for classroom snacks, and quiet confessions, things she didn't say out loud. Daniel is distant lately. Maybe it's the job stress, or maybe I'm just not interesting anymore. Sometimes I want to drive until I forget what I'm running from, but then Chloe hugs me and everything softens. Her last entry, the night before she disappeared, was brief. The porch light flickered again. I need to check the timer. Or maybe it's trying to tell me something. In the weeks before Emily vanished, there were subtle shifts. She asked her best friend, Lauren Tilley, if she believed people could be watched without knowing. Not by God, she clarified, by other people. Lauren laughed it off, but later admitted it made her uncomfortable. Emily also changed her route to work 3 times in 1 week. She told her sister, Melissa, that she kept dreaming of doors she couldn't open. At the clinic, she once stood frozen in the hallway, staring at a family photo on the wall, 3 kids and a woman who looked eerily like her. And then there was the matter of her health records. A month before she vanished, Emily asked for a full medical file printout. When the receptionist joked, planning to switch doctors, Emily smiled politely and said, "No, I just want to know exactly what they say about me." The file disappeared from her nightstand the day after she vanished. Emily wasn't perfect. That's important to say. She had moments of anger that flared up like sparks, quick, sharp, then gone. She could be withdrawn, especially when overwhelmed, and sometimes she over-apologized, as if being a burden was her worst fear, but she loved deeply. There was no doubt about that. Daniel remembered how she used to hum when folding laundry, how she'd curl her toes under the kitchen stool when reading recipes. How every Friday night she'd drag the family to the living room for pajama movie night, with popcorn and fleece blankets. He remembered all of this in fragments, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in the quiet just before dawn, when her side of the bed still felt colder than it should. He also remembered the fight. It wasn't explosive, no shouting, just tension that had been simmering for months. He had been working late. She had been asking questions about passwords, about accounts, about whether he still loved her. The night before she disappeared, he said something he wished he could erase. "If you think everything's so bad, maybe take a break. Go somewhere. Breathe." The next morning, she was gone. The kids struggled to understand. Liam, only 7, built a missing mom shrine in his room with her photos and drawings. He asked every day for a year if they could go look for her. Chloe, 5, didn't understand at first. She cried whenever someone else brushed her hair. "Only Mommy does it right," she'd say. Over time, their pain reshaped. Liam stopped asking. Chloe forgot the sound of her mother's voice. Daniel tried his best. He went to therapy. He kept their routines. He made waffles every Sunday because Emily used to. But no matter how much time passed, the house never felt like home again. Detective Maria Lopez kept Emily's file on her desk for months longer than protocol allowed. She revisited the house on Apple Blossom Drive every couple of weeks, retracing steps, hoping for something new to reveal itself. She reread the journals, those that remained. Emily's words haunted her. "Some people disappear a little at a time. I think I'm already halfway gone." Maria had worked cases with less evidence and more violence, but this one felt personal. Like a puzzle missing only one piece. A piece that refused to be found. In the community, Emily's disappearance became a cautionary tale. Parents reminded children not to wander too far. Neighborhood watch groups were formed. Cameras went up on front doors. Her face remained on a corkboard in the local diner for 3 years before the photo yellowed and curled. Some believed she ran away. Some believed she was taken. Some believed she was dead. But no one, not even those who quietly judged her, could imagine what would happen when she came back. When Emily reappeared, it was a Wednesday morning in late autumn. The receptionist at Asheville General said the woman looked exhausted but composed. She wore a dark green coat and scuffed white sneakers. Her voice was calm, her posture firm. She didn't ask for her family. She didn't ask for her lawyer. She asked for Detective Maria Lopez. And when Maria arrived, stunned, older, but still sharp, Emily looked her in the eye and said, "I know you have questions. I do, too. But before you ask, you need to understand something. I didn't go anywhere. I've been here all along." When news broke that Emily Carter had returned, the town didn't know what to feel. It spread like wildfire. The local news station interrupted its morning show with the headline, "Missing Mother Returns After 7 Years, Says She Was Never Missing." Bum. Social media exploded. Posts ranged from relief to outrage to disbelief. Some called her a liar, some called her a miracle. Most didn't know what to believe. Daniel didn't answer the phone when the hospital called. He was on his lunch break, scrolling through emails, when a coworker knocked on his office door and asked if he'd seen the news. His coffee slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. At the police station, Detective Maria Lopez watched Emily closely. They were seated in interview room B, just like they had been 7 years ago, only this time Emily was across from her. Emily looked thinner, her hair darker. But it was her. Maria knew it wasn't a hoax. And yet, something felt off. Emily's expression was calm, composed, but her eyes darted to the corners of the room, scanning like she expected someone to appear behind the glass. "I never left Asheville," Emily said. "That's not possible," Maria replied. "Your records stop after July 17th, 2018. You vanished." Emily frowned. "I've been living here, working. Renting a small place off Charlotte Street," Maria blinked. "Under what name?" "My own," Emily said. "Emily Carter." That was the first red flag. Maria sent 2 officers to check the address Emily gave. They found an empty apartment. Lease records showed it had been occupied until the week before, but under the name Erica Caldwell. There was a bed, a fridge, and a table. The fridge had food. The closet had clothes. But the only item that stood out was a framed photo of 2 children, Liam and Chloe, taken just before Emily's disappearance. Taped behind the photo was a receipt from a pharmacy in downtown Asheville. It was dated just 3 weeks earlier and paid for in cash. Name on the receipt, Erica Caldwell. Back at the station, Maria asked, "Do you know the name Erica Caldwell?" Emily looked confused. "No." "Should I?" "Your apartment lease, your prescriptions, they're all under that name." Emily's lips parted slightly. Her voice was almost a whisper. "I don't understand. I never changed my name." The inconsistencies began piling up. Emily agreed to provide fingerprints and a DNA sample. The DNA test confirmed it was her. But then, in the official system, her driver's license was marked deceased. According to the DMV, Emily Carter had died 6 years ago in a traffic accident in Tennessee. The body was never recovered, but the certificate had been processed. Signed off by a Dr. Helen Trask, a coroner Maria had never heard of. The phone number on the document went straight to a disconnected line. At the same time, Daniel was spiraling. He didn't tell Rachel, his current wife, that Emily had returned until the next morning. They had just finished breakfast. Liam was 14 now, stoic, distant. Chloe, 12, was quiet but sharp. Neither of them knew yet. Rachel poured coffee, leaned against the counter, and looked at Daniel. "You've been quiet since yesterday. Is something wrong?" Daniel hesitated. Then he said it. "Emily's back." Rachel's mug slipped from her hand. It didn't shatter. It bounced once and spilled hot coffee across the tile. "Back? How?" "She walked into the station. She says she never left." Rachel stared at him. For the first time since he'd known her, she looked afraid. "You need to tell the kids, but be careful." "Chloe, she barely remembers. Liam does. He won't take this well." Daniel nodded. But deep inside, a weight settled in his chest. Why was Rachel afraid? Back at the station, Emily agreed to write a statement. She detailed what she remembered: waking up every day, going to work as a receptionist in a wellness clinic downtown, using her debit card, shopping for groceries, going on walks alone. She remembered watching her children walk to school from a distance. She said she never spoke to them because something told her she wasn't allowed. She claimed she even mailed a birthday card to Chloe once, a card that never arrived. "I thought Daniel had a restraining order," she said. Maria frowned. "No one filed anything like that." Emily's hand trembled slightly. She looked down. "Then why did I feel like I wasn't supposed to go near them?" Maria began digging into local records. There was no record of Emily Carter working at any clinic under her name or Erica Caldwell. No employment taxes. No rental history aside from the one apartment under the alias. But the landlord remembered her. She paid cash, always wore a hat. Quiet woman, friendly but private. He said she'd lived there for about 4 years, but couldn't recall her ever having visitors. The most disturbing clue came from Emily's own handwriting. Maria requested a handwriting analyst to compare journal entries from before her disappearance to a note Emily wrote at the station. The analyst confirmed it was the same person, but said something strange. There are inconsistencies, micro-slant variations, changes in pen pressure, as if the writer was retraining themselves to write how they used to. Maria asked what that meant. Either she suffered cognitive trauma, or someone spent years trying to mimic her writing perfectly, and failed just slightly. Liam found out through a text. A classmate sent him a screenshot of the news report asking, "Is this your mom? WTF?" He didn't reply. Instead, he biked to the edge of town, to the creek behind the old schoolyard, where he used to play before everything fell apart. He sat for hours. He didn't cry. He didn't talk to anyone when he got home. But later that night, he opened the bottom drawer of his desk and took out an old Polaroid photo. Emily and him at the county fair, both laughing, cotton candy on their faces. He stared at it for a long time, then tore it in half. Meanwhile, Maria was contacted by a woman named Karen Briggs, a former clerk at Mountain Ridge Pediatrics. She said she remembered something strange from a year after Emily's disappearance. A woman came in, asked to volunteer. She said she had medical training but didn't provide documents. She looked familiar but different. Like Emily, but older. Tired, Karen said she turned her away because the woman became nervous when asked to fill out a form. Maria pulled security footage. It was grainy, but yes, it looked like Emily. One night, Emily was placed in protective housing while the investigation continued. Maria visited her there. The apartment was plain, a bed, a chair, a nightstand. But sitting on the windowsill was something unexpected, a small wooden music box. It had belonged to Chloe as a baby. It played "You Are My Sunshine." Maria picked it up slowly. "Where did you get this?" Emily's eyes welled with tears. "I don't know." Then came the key that changed everything. During a routine review of old case materials, Maria found a storage key Emily had left in her hospital locker. It had been dismissed as unrelated. She tracked it to a local storage unit, Unit 114, registered under Erica Caldwell. Inside there were boxes, dozens of them, clothes, notebooks, old toys, expired groceries, plastic containers of labeled soup. But at the back, under a tarp, was a metal file cabinet. Inside, dozens of documents, school records, newspaper clippings, photos of Liam and Chloe, some taken from afar, some shockingly close. And in one envelope, a birth certificate for Emily Carter, born in 1980, issued in Phoenix, Arizona. But her real birth certificate, on file in North Carolina, said she was born in 1985 in Raleigh. 2 identities, 2 Emilys, or one identity, rewritten. Detective Maria Lopez stood in her office, holding both birth certificates, one from North Carolina, one from Arizona. Same name, same mother's name, same birth date, with one crucial difference. The year, 1980 versus 1985, 5 years gone, hidden in plain sight. Both documents had official seals. Neither appeared forged. but one had to be a lie. Maria placed them side by side, heart pounding. This wasn't just a missing person case anymore. This was identity manipulation at a government level. Maria pulled up Emily's childhood records from local schools in Raleigh. There were school photos, health records, teacher reports, each page confirming a consistent timeline. But when she contacted the Arizona Department of Vital Records, they confirmed, yes, Emily Carter was born here. Application was processed in 1998 based on records submitted by her legal guardian. Guardian? Emily had never mentioned being adopted or having lived in Arizona. Who filed that document? The answer made Maria sit down. Helen Trask, the same name on Emily's death certificate. But according to state databases, Dr. Helen Trask died in 2002. So who had used her name? Maria met with Emily again. Do you remember living in Arizona? Emily paused. Her hands gripped the armrests of the chair. No. I've never been to Arizona. Do you remember anyone named Helen Trask? Emily shook her head. That doesn't mean anything. There are holes in my memory. Years feel foggy. Maria handed her the Arizona birth certificate. Emily stared at it for a long time. That's my mother's name, but that's not her signature. Then, slowly, her expression changed. Her voice dropped. I remember a woman with silver hair, always wore a scarf. She called herself Helen. Maria leaned in. Where did you see her? I think she was at the clinic, but not as staff, as a visitor. Digging into visitor logs from Mountain Ridge Pediatrics yielded nothing. Records had been digitized in 2019, and anything before that was stored in old boxes in the basement. Maria requested access. Dust-covered files, paper warped with age, mouse-chewed corners. After hours of digging, she found a sign-in sheet from June 2018, just weeks before Emily vanished. One name stood out, Helen T. No last name, no contact info, signed in at 9:12 a.m., signed out at 2:06 p.m. Reason for visit. Personal, meanwhile. Daniel made a decision he had been avoiding. He brought the kids to see Emily. The meeting was supervised, neutral ground. A room at a family services center with soft lighting, toys in the corners, and silence so thick it felt like cotton. Emily stood as they entered. Liam didn't speak. He just looked at her, eyes filled with something unreadable, too old for a boy his age. Chloe stared, wide-eyed. Emily knelt down. You're so big now, both of you. Chloe approached slowly. She touched Emily's hand. Then her voice broke the stillness. Do you remember the song you used to sing at bedtime? Emily nodded. Her voice shook. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. Chloe burst into tears and ran into her arms. Liam did not move. Later, outside the building, Daniel asked the question that had haunted him since her return. Oh, why didn't you come back sooner? Emily stared at the sky for a moment, then looked him in the eye. Because I thought you wouldn't want me back, because I didn't know who I was supposed to be anymore. Maria visited a retired nurse named Gladys Jameson, who had worked at a wellness clinic near downtown Asheville. The clinic had closed in 2021. Gladys remembered Emily. Only she didn't call herself Emily. She went by Erica. Sweet woman, quiet, always paid cash. She volunteered twice a week to help organize supplies. Do you remember anything unusual about her? Gladys hesitated. She once asked me if someone could live two lives and not know which was real. Maria's stomach twisted. Did she ever talk about her past? She said she felt like a photo that had been torn in half. The deeper Maria dug, the stranger the case became. Emily's hospital records showed she had visited the ER in 2020 after a bicycle accident. But she was registered as Erica Caldwell, with no emergency contact, treated, released, and never followed up. Maria retrieved the file. The treating physician's signature, H. Trask. Desperate for answers, Maria requested help from a federal contact in data forensics. What they uncovered stunned her. In 2018, around the time of Emily's disappearance, multiple Social Security databases were accessed from a private IP address, modifying a handful of identity fields connected to Emily's file. Not deleted, just hidden. Whoever did it knew the system. The address was traced to a building registered to a now-defunct nonprofit called the Foundation for Memory Rehabilitation, located just outside Phoenix, Arizona. The foundation was shut down for ethical violations in 2003. Its director, Dr. Helen Trask. Maria flew to Phoenix. The building was abandoned, windows shattered, inside furniture covered in dust, files shredded, computers removed. But in a locked filing cabinet, one missed perhaps, she found a single envelope labeled E. Carter. Long-term project whisper inside were a photo of Emily at 18 looking dazed, a list of dates and initials, a handwritten note. Subject shows high responsiveness to identity suggestion therapy. Implanted narrative appears stable. Monitoring to continue under field agent supervision. Motherhood has enhanced compliance. Signed H.T. Back in Asheville, Emily woke from a dream she couldn't describe. She remembered a room with white walls, voices behind a mirror, and someone saying, "She won't remember." She also remembered something else, a man's face, blurry, deep voice, smelled like aftershave and coffee. She told Maria. Maria showed her the photo from the file. Emily stared at it, then whispered, "That's the man who told me my family was gone." Detective Maria Lopez didn't sleep the night she returned from Phoenix. She sat in her office until sunrise, staring at the envelope marked Project Whisper, the handwriting, the photos, the clinical detachment in the language. All of it pointed to one conclusion: Emily Carter had been part of something far more sinister than anyone had imagined. And now it was time to find out who had pulled the strings. Emily was moved to a secure interview room. Maria placed the documents gently in front of her, the photograph, the list of dates, the signature. Emily scanned them, expressionless at first. Then her hand rose to her mouth. "I remember this man," she whispered. "He said he was from the government." Maria didn't react. Just let her talk. "He told me my family had been in an accident, that I was lucky to survive, that I had suffered trauma. I wasn't ready to return to my old life. He said they would protect me until I was strong again." Her voice cracked. I believed him. Maria showed her a copy of the report from the Foundation for Memory Rehabilitation. Emily flinched as she read. Tears welled. Implanted narrative, compliant subject, field agent. She slammed her fist on the table. "They used me." The man in the photo had a name, Dr. Edwin Marchand, former behavioral psychologist, once worked with the CIA in early 2000s. Known for controversial research into narrative detachment, a form of therapy that used controlled memory suppression and replacement to help patients cope with trauma. After his work was deemed unethical, he disappeared from public view. But according to classified documents Maria obtained through her federal contact, Marchand had resurfaced in 2016 under a false identity, affiliated with private clinical research across several states, including North Carolina. The missing pieces began to fall into place. 7 years ago, Emily had been recruited or taken into a covert behavioral study posing as therapeutic intervention. She had been told her family was gone. Her identity was restructured. A new life, new job, new name, Erica Caldwell, all carefully planted and sustained. Why? Because Emily had been identified as a high-compliance subject, someone ideal for testing the long-term effects of narrative detachment therapy. But there was one question left. Why her? Why Emily Carter? The answer came from an unlikely source, Rachel, Daniel's second wife. She arrived at the station unannounced, asked to speak with Maria. Her hands trembled as she clutched an old journal. "I wasn't going to come," Rachel said, "but there's something you need to see." She handed Maria the journal. It wasn't Rachel's, it was Emily's. The last volume, long thought lost. Rachel found it buried in a moving box in the attic, sealed in a manila envelope marked, "Do not open unless I'm gone." Inside were pages of Emily's thoughts, confessions, fears. "He watches me from the corner of the clinic. He says his name is Dr. Gray, but I've seen his badge. It says Marchand. He says I'm special, that my memory is strong enough to be reshaped. I want to tell Daniel, but I'm scared. If he finds out, they'll come for me sooner." Maria felt her throat tighten. Emily had known she was being watched. She had sensed the storm coming, but no one believed her. Confronted with the journal, Emily broke down. "I tried to leave clues. I wanted someone to find out. I thought maybe Daniel would see the signs. Maybe someone would read the journals." She looked up, eyes raw. "But they were so good at making me doubt myself." Maria turned her focus to Daniel. She needed to know. Had he known any of this? They met at the park, away from the kids, out of earshot. "I swear to you," Daniel said, "I didn't know. I thought she'd left. I thought she couldn't handle the pressure anymore." Maria studied his face. "Did Emily ever mention being followed? Watched?" Daniel was quiet for a long time. Then, "Once, the week before she disappeared, she said a man had come to the clinic asking strange questions. She didn't know if he was a patient or something else. I told her to ignore it, that people wander in all the time." He looked away, ashamed. "She asked if I believed she was in danger. I said no. But someone had believed her. Karen Briggs, the same woman who had seen Emily a year after her disappearance, came forward again, this time with a key. She gave it to me," Karen said, "slipped it into my hand in the clinic hallway, told me to keep it safe, said it was for later." The key was to a locker at the downtown bus terminal. Maria went there immediately. Inside, wrapped in plastic, was a small flash drive. It contained audio recordings, static-filled, crackling, some nearly inaudible. But one stood out. "Subject continues to exhibit signs of loyalty to former life. Emotional anchors strong. Recommend Phase 2 detachment before reintegration. Note: proximity to children triggers destabilization. Adjust reinforcement schedule." Maria froze. They hadn't just erased her memory. They had planned to do it again. But something went wrong. One of the names listed on the session log, Dr. Peter Lanham. Maria tracked him down, now living under a different name in South Carolina. He was in hiding. When she arrived at his door, he looked pale, thin, eyes haunted. "You're here about Emily Carter?" Maria nodded. "I didn't want to go along with it. I didn't know what they were really doing, not at first. It was supposed to be about healing, helping people reshape trauma. But then I saw her file. She didn't have trauma. She had a life, a family. They erased it anyway." "I told Marchand it was unethical. He said she was perfect, because she wouldn't fight." Lanham handed over a printed document. Project Whisper Phase 2 Protocol. It described a process to permanently overwrite core memory structures using induced sensory disruption, chemical inhibitors, and repetition cycles. But it had one warning: extended exposure to anchors, family, memory triggers, may undo narrative stability, risk of reversion high. That explained it. That's why Emily had watched her children from afar. That's why her memory had started to unravel. That's why she had returned. She had never truly forgotten. Her love for her children had been the thread they couldn't sever. Maria brought Emily back to the house on Apple Blossom Drive. The porch light had been replaced, but still clicked on at 6:30. Emily stood there, hands trembling. This This is where I stopped being me." She stepped inside. Everything had changed. New furniture. New paint. Her photos gone. But in the hallway closet, behind an old stack of boxes, something waited. A small canvas bag. Inside, a baby sock, a gold locket, a photo of Liam with crayon hearts on the back, and a folded piece of paper. It was a drawing Chloe had made. A stick figure family. Mommy, written above the smiling figure in red. Emily sank to the floor. That night she sat with Liam and Chloe on the back porch. Liam finally spoke. "Did you really forget us?" Emily swallowed hard. "No." "Not truly. They tried. But something in me held on." Chloe reached for her hand. Liam looked away, but didn't let go. The final blow came 3 days later. Dr. Edwin Marchand was arrested in Maryland under a false identity. He had been living under the name Greg Fields, working as a private trauma consultant. Inside his home, police found boxes of files, photos, names, subjects. Emily was not the only one. The arrest of Dr. Edwin Marchand made manchettes nationales. Headlines branded him a rogue psychiatrist, a mind control pioneer, and the man who stole identities. But for Emily Carter, it wasn't justice. It was just the beginning of what she'd have to face to get her life back. Because what do you do when your name, your memories, and your family have all lived on without you? You start again, awkwardly, painfully, and without instructions. Her first night back home was quiet. Daniel had prepared the guest room. The same room Emily's mother once used when she came to visit before the children were born. It smelled like lavender and lemon polish. Clean, unfamiliar. As Emily stood at the doorway, she whispered, "I don't want to be a ghost in this house." Daniel didn't know what to say, so he just nodded and left the door open. The next morning, Emily woke up before everyone else. The sky was pale blue, the house silent. She wandered into the kitchen and stood at the counter, hands resting lightly on the cold granite. Her eyes scanned the room like it was a memory she didn't know if she could trust. She opened a drawer and found the same apple peeler they'd bought at the farmer's market years ago. The same one she used to make snack roses for Chloe's lunchbox. A breath hitched in her throat. Footsteps echoed behind her. It was Rachel. They looked at each other for a long time. "I'll leave if you want me to," Rachel said first, voice even. "This is your home now," Emily replied, but then she added, "Still, I think we need to talk." They sat in the sunroom, two women tethered by a shared history, but no roadmap. Rachel spoke first. "I wasn't trying to erase you, I swear. When I met Daniel, he was broken. He hadn't even started grieving yet. He just existed. And the kids needed someone steady." Emily nodded. "Did you ever suspect something was wrong?" Rachel hesitated. "There were moments. Chloe talked about seeing you at the playground once. I told her it was a dream. Then, 3 years ago, I found one of your old journals under Liam's bed." Emily's eyes widened. "He kept one?" "Yes, but when I opened it, I was afraid. Because it talked about someone watching you. About feeling erased." Rachel's voice cracked. I didn't want to believe it. I convinced myself it was just the ramblings of someone slipping away. Emily was quiet for a long time. "I don't blame you, but I'm going to need time to forgive the silence." Rachel nodded. "That's fair." And for the first time, they shared something real. Not love, not resentment, but grief. Liam was harder. He didn't speak to Emily for days. Then, one evening, he knocked on her door. He didn't come in. He just asked one question. "Were you ever really gone?" Emily walked slowly to the doorway. "Yes, in ways I didn't understand, but I never left you in my heart." Liam didn't say anything. But the next morning there was a drawing on the fridge, a stick figure labeled Mom, standing next to one labeled Me. Chloe, on the other hand, clung to Emily like a tether. At night she curled up in her bed just to hear her mother's voice tell stories again. Stories about silly raccoons stealing pie and trees that whispered names in the wind. But Chloe also had nightmares. She'd wake up screaming that someone was taking her mom away again. Emily would hold her tight and whisper, "No one will ever take me again, not while I'm breathing." Detective Maria Lopez was awarded a commendation for her work on the case. She declined it. "I didn't solve a case," she told the press. "I helped someone return home. That's not the same thing." Privately, she started therapy. The case had opened wounds she didn't know she carried. Her own daughter had gone missing for 3 days when she was 7. She had come back unharmed. But Maria never truly trusted the world after that. Emily's story had stirred up the truth. Sometimes the people who disappear are not the ones who walk away, but the ones we let slip into the silence. The FBI launched an investigation into other victims. Files recovered from Marshawn's home listed 11 confirmed names, all with similar profiles: emotionally resilient, isolated during key life stages, with high compliance potential. 5 had been located. 2 had died under unexplained circumstances. The rest were still missing. Emily was asked to testify. She agreed, not for vengeance, but for the others who might still be out there living someone else's life. At the hearing, she stood before a panel of agents and lawmakers. She held the locket Chloe had made for her in 2nd grade. "I am Emily Carter. I am a mother. I was made to forget that. I was told my family was dead, that my name didn't belong to me anymore, that I was better off starting over. But no program, no doctor, no lie was strong enough to erase the part of me that still looked for my children every single day. Love is louder than silence. And that's what brought me home." Her voice didn't shake once. That winter, Emily visited the place where she had lived as Erica Caldwell. She walked through the small apartment, touched the walls, sat on the edge of the bed, and then she pulled out a match. She didn't burn the building. But she lit one flame, let it burn in a bowl, and dropped in a single item: the name badge, Erica Caldwell, admin. As the plastic melted, she whispered, "I'm not her anymore." In spring, she returned to the clinic. Mountain Ridge Pediatrics welcomed her cautiously. A few old faces, a few new ones. She didn't ask for her old job. She volunteered, reading to children in the waiting room, playing peekaboo, restocking bandages. For Emily, it was enough to be useful, to belong again. One afternoon, a woman approached her, mid-40s, brown curls, sunglasses. She hesitated, then asked, "Are you the woman from the news?" Emily nodded. "I had a sister," the woman said. "She vanished in 2015. I think she might have been one of them." Emily took her hand. "Tell me her name." The porch light flickered again, same time. 6:30 a.m. 7 years ago, that flicker had marked a vanishing. Now it marked a return. Emily stood on the front steps of Apple Blossom Drive, barefoot, cradling a mug of warm tea. The morning was quiet, the air soft with spring. Behind her, the house had changed, not in walls or windows, but in weight. It no longer carried the ache of absence. It breathed again. The door creaked open. Chloe stepped out, rubbing her eyes. "You're up early." "So are you," Emily smiled. Chloe leaned into her side, resting her head against her arm. "I had a dream that we were all at the beach. You, me, Liam, Daddy. We built the biggest sandcastle ever. It had towers and windows and flags." "That sounds perfect," Emily said softly. Then a wave came and knocked it down. Chloe looked up, but when the water went away, it was still there. Emily closed her eyes. That's how love works. Even when it's covered, even when it's almost gone, it remembers how to stand. Inside, Liam sat at the kitchen table, cereal half-eaten, eyes on a newspaper spread before him. The headline, New investigations uncover dozens of possible victims in identity suppression program. He didn't look up when Emily entered, but she saw the tension in his jaw. She placed a hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to forgive me today, or even tomorrow." Liam finally looked at her. But I'm here now, and I will show up for you every day I'm allowed." He nodded once. "Just don't disappear again." "Not unless you come with me," she smiled. It was small, but it was a beginning. That afternoon, Emily visited the grave that had been erected for her. It sat at the edge of the memorial garden downtown, a small plaque with her name, year of birth, and the words, "Forever loved, never forgotten." She knelt down in the grass and touched the stone. "You can take it down," she whispered. "I'm not buried anymore." Next to it, someone had left wildflowers. No note. She didn't need one. She knew who they were from. Later that week, Maria Lopez returned to Emily's home, not as a detective, but as a friend. They sat on the porch swing as the sun set, sipping tea and watching the street lights flicker on. "Do you ever feel like none of this is real?" Emily asked. Maria nodded. "Almost every day. But then I remember the things no one could make up." "Like what?" Maria smiled faintly. "Like a mother finding her way back to her children through nothing but instinct. That kind of love doesn't need permission." They sat in silence for a while. Then Maria stood. "There's something I've been meaning to give you." She pulled a small envelope from her coat. Inside was a photo, Emily holding Chloe as a baby, Liam beside her, all three laughing under a red umbrella. "We found it in one of Marchand's recovered files. Figured it belonged with you." Emily's fingers trembled. "Thank you." Maria turned to leave, then paused. "You know, we always say people vanish without a trace, but that's never true. There's always something left behind." Emily nodded. "Sometimes the trace is the part of you they couldn't take." In the following months, Emily became a quiet voice in advocacy groups for families affected by psychological manipulation and covert experimentation. She didn't tell her story on TV. She didn't write a book. She simply showed up. For the woman whose sister vanished in 2015, for the boy who thought his mom would never come home, for herself. One afternoon, she took Chloe to the library. As they walked past the children's section, Chloe pointed to a drawing pinned on the wall. Crayon lines. A stick figure with a red shirt and a heart on its chest. Underneath, a name, Emily. Chloe giggled. "That's you!" Emily looked closer. The child's name on the corner, Maya. She didn't know Maya, but somehow it felt like a message. She took a photo of it and smiled. On the anniversary of her return, Liam gave her a gift. A shoebox wrapped in brown paper tied with string. Inside, her old spiral journals. He had found them in the garage, hidden in a dusty box marked Books Donate. "I thought you might want these," he said. "They're yours now." Emily's hand shook. She ran her fingers over the faded covers, opened one. On the inside page, in her own handwriting, it read, "If I forget who I am, remind me." She looked up at Liam, eyes wet. "You reminded me." He shrugged. "I just brought the box." "You did the rest." The night ended with a soft rain. Emily sat at the window, listening to the drops tapping the glass, the quiet creak of the house settling around her. She opened a fresh notebook. On the first page she wrote, "I am Emily Carter. I am a mother. I am not a ghost. I was taken, but I returned, and the light still flickers at 6:30. I see it now, not as an omen, but as a reminder that I exist." She closed the notebook and let herself finally exhale.